We're back again with that coin collection find, and it's time for part two. And today we're going to focus on the silver. Hey everyone, it's RobFindsTreasure, and welcome back to the channel. If you missed the first part of this coin collection find series, be sure to check it out. I'll have a quick link to it not only below in the video description, but as well as put one up here. You'll want to see what we found in the nickels and the pennies. And if it's anything like we're going to find in the silver, we could be in for a treat. Now, we still have a couple of other boxes of flips and miscellaneous things. That'll probably be part three. That'll probably be an overhead look as I look through what's in here. I see a lot of pennies in here, so we might actually do a variety search, and maybe we'll have some great dates again. But today, like I said, we're going to focus on the collection albums, all the rolled coins, and I pulled out the silver flips he had set on top of this box because when he was pricing it, he needed to see what was silver. I'm not going to do anything with the jewelry for now. We're going to keep that. It's a cool collector's piece. I'll probably just put it in my safe. But let's get this hunt started. We'll kick it off with the dimes. I think what I'll do is I'll just dump out these dime rolls on the mat. We'll take a quick look through them, as well as the dimes that are in the flips. We'll see if we have any better dates, and if not, we'll just roll them up and move on to the quarters. I'll be back with a dump out on the dimes in just a second. All right, I've got the dime rolls laid out, and it looks like the majority of them are going to be Mercury dimes, although I do see a few Rosies mixed in throughout, so we'll have to see how many are Mercury dimes versus Rosies. But I thought it was pretty cool because in the flips, one of them, take a look at what it reads. Renee found in Pop's locker or pocket. Oh, Renee found in Pop's pocket. That's pretty cool. A tone dime too, 1964 Denver. So I'll probably just keep that in the flip. That's kind of a cool little piece right there. Looks like it was written a long time ago, flipped up. You can tell it's been in the flip for a while. The staples are starting to rust, and the dime is definitely toning. So that's a cool little piece that was in the flips. These are all 63 Denvers. I think what I'll do is just start going through these dimes off camera, and we'll see if we have any better dates. That's a 34 with a mint mark. And yeah, let me run through here. And like I said, if it's anything like the pennies, we should see some earlier dimes. Matter of fact, what I'm seeing here is 30s and 20s. 30s and 20s here. Obviously, we're probably not going to get a 16D or a 21 or a 21D, but we'll see what we find. Let me run through these, get them sorted by date and segregated by Rosies and Mercs, and I'll be back in a second unless I have a good find. Well, I'm bringing you back really quickly because I have a find I want to share with you, but take a look at the assortment of dates. It's just like the pennies. It's mostly 20s Mercury dimes, only one slightly better date so far. It's a 1928 with a Denver mint mark. So that's the best find in the 20s. That's the teens. We do have two 1916s. I have not looked at the reverse. We'll look at those here at the end of the Merc dimes. That's the 30s. Only one from the 40s, a 1945, and a handful so far of the Roosevelt dimes, which I've been kind of pulling out of here. But I bring in because as I was pulling out the Roosevelt dimes, take a look at what I see here. We actually have a Barber dime in here. I was wondering if we'd see any with all these oldies, and we do have one. 1913 out of Philly. That's the common one from the 1913 year, but I'll still take it. Wasn't expecting a Barber dime. We've got one. Let me get back to the sort, and I'll bring it back if I have a find. Well, apparently I'm blind, and you guys probably saw it. Right under that Barber dime was apparently another Barber dime. A 1910. Also out of Philly. We'll take it. Hopefully I don't miss any more. All right, I've got the sort done. Really quickly, I want to make a quick mention that I did find a 1945 Micro S. I've got it under the scope compared to a regular one. That's a regular 1945 S mint mark. That's the Micro S. It looks like it's been pinched in here. I've done a video on those. They only fetch good value in the AU or higher grades. And unfortunately, when I pull this top one off, which is the Micro S, that is probably at best a low VF, maybe only a fine. So no extra value in that. That's why I just send it back. Or not send it back, I send it to my stack. But obviously, if they had a higher grade or at least it looked better, I might keep it. That being said, this is the breakdown. That's the Rosies. That's the 40s. Started seeing a few. That's the 30s. There was about a half a roll of those that I saw all of a sudden. The 20s led the way, and we got a second 28 Denver. And then as far as the teens, that's the teens with two 1916s. We're hoping for a Denver, of course, but even a San Francisco mint mark would be kind of sweet. This one's pretty slick. Is there a mint mark? I don't see one with the naked eye, but we always scope the 16s just to make sure. And yeah, no mint mark. That's a 16 Philly. How about the better one? And I don't see a mint mark either, but like I said, we always scope them just to make sure. So no mint marks, no 1916 Denvers or San Francisco, no 26S, and no 1930 through 31s, which are better dates. Didn't see those. So cool that there's a lot of oldies, but nothing fantastic, and we even got a couple of barber dimes. Now that we finished with the dimes, let's move on to the 3 rolls of quarters. I'll dump them out on the mat, and I'll bring you guys back in for a look. All right, we've got the quarters dumped out. It looks like there's a couple of rolls of Washington quarters, and then a mixed roll with some Washington, some SLQs, and even a barber quarter on the top of the roll, 1911 out of Philly, in decent condition. Let me do this. Let me run through these really quickly, just seeing if we have any earlier SLQs, and it looks like they all have dates, maybe not a few of them. Let me see if we have any earlier SLQs and run through the Washington quarters for any varieties. I'll do that really quickly. If I have a find, I'll bring you back. Otherwise, I'll just bring you back at the end, and we'll see what we got. All right, I'm doing the sort on the quarters. I have a good date to talk about right here. We got the Washingtons over here by decade. These are the SLQs. You saw the barber quarter. Handful of 25s, 26s, 27s, and a couple of 28s. I'm pretty certain this is a 28S. There's definitely an S mint mark. You can see that right there. And that looks like it's going to be a 28. You can clearly see there's a 2 there, so we know it's in the 20s. And based on this little curvature that we can barely make out, that's probably a 1928S. I don't think it could be anything else. Could be a 3, but I don't think so. 1928S, 29s, and a pretty nice 1930. That's definitely a nice condition. Looks like the SLQ quarters I got the other day in that purchase. The Washingtons, we got 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, and I am looking for varieties as I go through them, but I bring in because we have our first better date. It's not in the best condition, but that's a 1936, and it's out of San Francisco. They only minted like less than 4 million of these, and even in G4 condition, they sell better than most melt quarters at a face value multiple. So it's a pretty nice coin. Obviously, it's not one I need in this condition, but wanted to bring it up. We do have one better date Washington so far. Let's get back to the sort and hunt. I'm back, and rather quickly, we did grab a slightly better date, but only in the higher grades, 1942S. That's why I didn't film it before. But I was scoping the 1962 Philly, and there's what's known as a proof reverse. I've done videos on these, and if that A is touching the leaf, and you have bolded tail feathers, and you have a distinctive gap between E and S in states, you can tell how well struck the back is. They accidentally used the proof die on the reverse of some of the 1956 through 1964 years. So they made the same mistake like 8 or 9 years in a row. That's a pretty decent coin overall, but it's not a grader because submission with attributes as far as getting the FS 901 reverse proof die designation costs north of $40, and you'd have to get an MS 64 or 5 or better to break even. So even though it is a nice variety and it is one we just found, it's not one we'd submit, and I think I already have a better one. So nice find there. Let's keep looking. I know I'm back quickly again, but I just flipped over a 1939 and it's a Denver. And I know it's in rough condition, but 1939 Denver is another tougher date with just over 7 million minted. So we're starting to see some better dates. Will there be a 32 DRS? Probably not, but this is fun. I'm back again with another find. Really quickly, we found another 1936S. So we have 2 of those, but I grabbed this 1959 Philly and I knew it looked nice. Flipped it around and naked eye saw it was a proof reverse again, FS 901. Take a look at that. Touching the leaf, bold tail feathers, and that distinctive gap right there. And it looks like it has a little bit of mechanical doubling. Kind of a cool find. We now have 2 FS 901 proof reverse coins, two 36S's. And while I have you here, let's see if we have another 36S. We don't. We have a better date than the S. We have the 36 Denver. Holy cow. That's another tough one. I think there's only like 5.5 million of these minted. And, well, obviously it needs to be higher grade than this. When they're in low grade like this, they get tossed in bins all the time. But it's still a good book filler. And I would say it's probably north of 12 to 15 bucks, typically for most people trying to fill a slot in their album. We'll take it. 36D, two 36S's. Man. Let's see if we can find some more. All right, I have finished the quarters. I had a few more finds, but I didn't want to be a broken record, so I figured I'd cover them in the wrap-up, and we have a quarter flip to do. These are the 30s right here. We had a lot of better dates. Two 36 Denvers, three 36S's, a 38P, and a 39 out of Denver. Can't get mad at that. Here's all the 40s. We had three 40s better dates. Not going to cover those. They don't have a lot of value unless they're in higher grade. These are the 50s, and these are the 60s. I ended up nabbing another proof reverse die, 1957, and I don't know if I have that one. I'm missing either the 57 or the 56, but that's another one. So we end up with three proof reverse dies, which is crazy. 57, 59, and 62. On top of that, you probably saw them. We had two flipped quarters, a 1958 Denver in beautiful condition, and then a common 1963 Denver, also in beautiful condition. I like the old flips. Speaking of flipping, I did nab one 1932 quarter in the bunch. Figured I'd save the reveal for now. Is there a mint mark? That would be epic. And there is not a mint mark, but I always scope them just in case. Yeah, no mint mark on the 32P. We'll still take it. Nice oldie. So, nice assortment of quarters. We got varieties, slightly better dates, and we got some SLQs and a barber. Let me go ahead and roll all these up, and we'll move on to the half dollars next. All right, time to do the half dollars. I went ahead and laid out all the rolls. We have lots of the 40 percenters. There's a ton. Some are still in what looks like original mint wrapping. So obviously I'll be scoping all of the 40s for any of the major varieties from 65 through 68. I'll let you know if I have any finds there. These are the Kennedys, the 1964 Kennedys. We'll look for varieties on those. Only one Benji, really nice in the flip as well, 1963 out of Denver. And a ton of walkers, and I figured we walked through them together, pun intended, because it looks like, just like the pennies, there's lots of oldies in here. We'll do it really fast. 1920p. Looks like a 1923, so that's going to have a San Francisco mint mark. 1920 out of Denver. 1923, of course, out of San Fran. Another 1920 out of San Francisco. Another 1920 out of San Francisco. 1929 is going to be an S. 1928 is going to be an S. And that looks like it's probably a 27 or a 23. It's a 1927, so that's going to be an S mint mark as well. Another 1928 with the San Francisco mint mark. The reason why I know there's S's on these is because they only minted S's those years. 1920, San Francisco again. Another 1920 out of Philly. That's in decent shape for a 1920. We'll take that. Yet another 1920 out of San Francisco. Another 1928 out of San Francisco. And a common 1943, but it looks pretty good. That's in pretty good condition. That's probably a mid VF. We'll take that, even though it's more modern. So walkers looked great. Definitely some great or better dates in here. Of course, they are pretty worn, probably pulled out of circulation along with the pennies and the nickels and the dimes and quarters, as you've seen. So great mixture there. Let me do this. Let me start running through all of this other 90% and 40% silver for varieties. If I find something, I'll bring you back in. I am back. I have finished the tedious task of looking at all the coins for any varieties. Unfortunately, there's none. 163D Benji, a 64 in a flip, the P's and D's. For the 64s, no varieties. For the 1965, there is a nice double die reverse at the stars, the second row of stars. Didn't have any. We had 3 nice coins. For 1966, there's a nice DDO at the word trust. Didn't have any. Those were the 2 nicest. In 1967, they had both a double die obverse. There's 2 to look for at the word trust. And there's also a beautiful DDR as well on the first A, or mostly on the first A in America. Didn't have any of those. That's the nicest one. For 1968, there's a tripled die obverse at the word trust. Didn't have any, but we had a couple of nice coins. And then there's no varieties in 1969. That's the regular ones, and these are the 4 nicest. If you guys would like to see me do a educational video on what to look for with good images for the 40% double die, since a lot of people don't look for them, let me know in the comments down below, and I'll do that video. In the meantime, let me get all this put into my stock, and now we'll move on to the dollar coins, and we'll start with, I think, the peace dollars. We'll start with the peace dollars and then move over to the Morgans last. All right, got those put away. Let's go ahead and crack open the peace dollars. I know I got a count on them, but not necessarily any dates were mentioned. Obviously, I highly doubt a 1921 or a 1928, but let's just take a peek at these. I got a good deal on these right at just $1 over melt, so I'm not too mad about that. I think I paid $39 per peace dollar. So there's a 1922. We're going to do these live just in case. A 1922. I think there's a mint mark down. There might be a Denver. There is. 1922 Denver. We'll take that. We got a 1925. No mint mark, of course. It's in decent shape. Another 1925 in rough shape, but it does have a mint mark, 25S. We will definitely take that. What's next? A 1926. 26 Denver. Not too shabby. That's a pretty nice 1926. That's in great shape. And there is a mint mark. 26S. You know what? The 26S in the higher grades is worth a little bit more. That is a candidate. I'll look that up and find out the mintage and the value based on what I first see, because it still has some luster. That's probably a high AU at least. We'll have to see. All right. Oh, look at that. We got a 1934. And I believe there's a mint mark on that. Denver. 1934 Denver is a better date. And a 1935. It is in rough shape. It has damage on it. It looks like it was shot with a BB. 1935. And of course it's an S. Very tough date with damage. Dang it. 1924 in rough shape. With a mint mark as well. And that's a 24S. That is a very tough date. Although it's in very tough condition. What a bummer. 1922 out of San Fran. 1923 out of Philly, I believe. That's in pretty nice shape. That's another higher AU coin. Where's that go? Right there. Another 1923 with a mint mark. Looked like it was an S. It is. 1923 San Francisco. Running out of space over here. 1923 out of Denver. That's a nice 1924. It's got some gunk on it, but it's a nice 1924. Out of Philly. We will take that. 1923 damaged out of San Fran. 1926 out of San Fran. Well, I'm not going to put that on top of that one. What was this? Was that a 26 Denver again? Yeah. And A 1923 in pretty nice shape, well, except for the reverse. And I believe there's a Denver mint mark on that one. If I can, no, it's San Francisco. 1923S, another roughie. So looks like we got a pretty good collection here. No 21, of course, but we have a lot of the dates, no 27s, 28s, and only some of the other years. But still a pretty nice overall collection with three nicer coins overall, including a few tougher dates right there. So I will definitely take that. Let me go ahead and get these buttoned up. Move on to the Morgans. I'll dump them out and we'll do just like this was. I know it's a longer video, but you guys like them longer. And we'll look at those together. I think I got these at $42 a piece, roughly. Anyway, let's see what we find. Peace dollars are put away. The 4 better dates are down below. Like I said, they're in tough condition. Now it's time to do the Morgan dollars. All right, let's see how these go. Let's see how these go. Probably going to be a lot in the 20s or 1921 was the most common ones minted. And there you go right off the bat. It does have a mint mark. It is a 21 San Francisco. So slightly better, only in the higher grades. Well, very valuable in the high grades. 1921. Looks like that might be a Denver. And it is. So we have a 21 DNS. Another 1921 out of Philly. Hopefully it's not a lot of 21s. I know I saw some other dates on top. 1921 out of San Francisco. Philadelphia minted, 1921. Uh-oh. There we go. 1891 out of Philly. We'll take that. A Philadelphia minted, 1885. I'll check these for VAMs afterwards. We're just looking for great dates if we get lucky. Is that a mint mark? No, just some damage. I thought it was going to be another S. 1896 out of Philly. Another Philadelphia, 1900. Cool toning on that. Looks like it was cleaned a while ago. We've got the big O mint mark on that one. Well, it's damaged. That's why it looks so big. New Orleans minted, 1901. Common, but a cool coin nonetheless because it's from New Orleans. Another New Orleans, 1899. That's also a common date, even though, like I said, it's always fun seeing other mints besides PD and S's. A damaged New Orleans again. 1900 this time. So we got the P and the O. An 1897 clean, cool patina out of New Orleans. Another O. 1882 O. You know, slightly better date in the higher grades. That is not a higher grade, though. Don't expect to have higher grades in here. 1887 O. Yet again. Another New Orleans. Another 1882 in rough shape. A relatively nice, but has been cleaned Philly out of 1882. And the final Morgan is probably the best of the bunch. A Philadelphia minted. Common as can be, though. 1889 Philly. You know, it's in really nice shape. It does have some kind of line across it, a couple lines. But outside of that, it's got good details. It's got good luster. It's a low AU, though. A lot of the breast feathers are slid off on this one. And a little bit of surface wear on the high points on the front. So at best, probably an AU 53. Still a nice coin, though, and we will take that. That was an 1889. So nothing fancy schmancy as far as dates in the Morgans. Didn't expect that for what I paid. But let me run through them really quick for any VAMs. If I find any, I'll bring it back. Otherwise, I'll bring it back with a recap of the silver that was loose so far. And then we'll quickly run through the collection albums. Well, that was quick. Literally just checked the second coin. We had two 1882 O's, and the second coin under the scope, we have a O over S. You can barely see the center of the S. This is what's known as the recessed mint mark. There's a flush, there's a recessed, and then there's a broken. Let me bring up PCGS right here. Yeah. So we have the flush, which is really pronounced. We have the recess, where you can see both sides of the O, the inner parts of the circle. And then the broken one is kind of a mess. So this looks like it's a VAM4 based on what I can see. If I bring back up my scope, you can see that it's recessed in there, and it is a top 100 VAM. Now, why am I checking for top 100 VAMs on these types of coins in rough shape? Because it's a top 100, it's fun to find. 1882 O, over S, recessed, VAM4, top 100. I will take that. That's a good start. Lots more to look through. Well, unfortunately, no other VAMs in the rest of the Morgans, but was still fun scoping them. That being said, we did get one top 100. You guys saw it. It's in rough shape, but I will take it. Let me tube up the Morgans. I'll bring down the collection albums, and we'll just go from the pennies on all the way up to whatever we have. Let me get this set up. I'll be right back. All right, we're going to kick it off with the pennies, and based on what we saw in the rolls, I would imagine they took the best coins and put them in the books, but you never know. Let's take a peek here. We got an 09, a 10, 11, slightly better 11D as far as the date, but man, these look rough. Never mind, these look pretty rough. 12D, slightly better date. 13D, but I don't see anything in any kind of condition in this album so far that says this was their primary set. This might have been one for their kids, maybe. I don't know. Maybe their primary set they kept, because none of these look that great at all. And they look pretty rough. And I don't see, well, we got a 26S there. We do have a 1926S. I missed it the first go around, but that's a better date for sure. Obviously, you can see the mintage down there. And yeah, let's take a quick peek on the last page here. We got a 31 Denver. That's a semi-key. 33 Denver, but these are not as good a shape as the ones we had the other day. I know my camera works bad. I'm looking over my camera as I do this, trying to see stuff so I don't miss it. But I don't see anything in here that's really that nice, to be honest. I don't see anything in here that's really that nice at all. So, yeah, just kind of a fun book. A couple of better dates, but nothing fantastic in here whatsoever. Let's see if the modern ones have any shinier or nicer ones than that one had. Nah, it looks like more of the same. Looks like more of the same. So I think the next order of business on the pennies is probably 69. Oh, they're trying to get the S's done for the later San Francisco strikes. So I think what I'll do is I'll run through this off camera and I'll see if there's any varieties, and maybe they missed some, but really nothing in the pennies exciting. Let's try the Buffalo Nickel album. Let's try the Buffaloes. We do have a dated 1913 raised ground. I'll have to check the back, but I'm pretty sure they put it in the right spot. And not much going on that page. 20 Denver. You can barely see the date, though. Really not much going on here. 26 Denver. I'll have to double check that, but that's a better date, obviously, by the mintage. I mean, it's not worth much in low condition, but still. Let's see, 28S, not bad. 29S, not bad. 29 Denver, not bad. 30S, if that's a 30S, that's in pretty good shape. And then, of course, we'll look for varieties. Pretty nice 37 Denver. So, Buffalo Nickels, again, as expected, he did tell me there's none of the key dates in any of these books. There's really nothing in the Rosie Dime book to get excited about. Let's just see how complete it is. Assuming they're all in the right spots, and I bought lots of collection albums where they have one that's not in the right spot. This is a pretty much complete collection. Easy to fill in the 62p, 63p, and I'm not worried about the clad stuff. Of course, we'll check for varieties like I said. So nothing exciting, as usual, in the Rosies. Mercury Dime book. This is one I'm excited about. Let's see what we got in here. We knew we were missing the tough coins. So no 16 Denver. I don't see anything in great shape. That's what the problem is with these cardboard books. They're good for initial starting like kids, but once you graduate into nicer coins, you definitely want to graduate the book. No 19S, no 21s, of course. You know what? If we got a 26S, that's a good coin. That is a $10+ coin all day. I'll have to double check that. And then no 27S, no 31S, another very tough coin. And of course, I'll be looking through these for any varieties as normal. I'll be doing all this off camera. I saw some writing at the bottom of this. November 1959, Mrs. Virginia Laney. Very cool. All right. So nothing too exciting in the Merc Dimes, but still fun going through them. Now, we should have a complete Benji collection. I don't think they should be missing any. Well, I guess they are. 48 and 49. Couple of tougher oldies. Yeah, they're missing some. I bought these at a multiple of melt, so I'm not too concerned unless we have some really nice looking coins. And judging by what I'm seeing, not a lot of great looking Benjis, just stuff to go ahead and add into the silver packs. All right, Liberty Standing half dollars, 1916 to 1936. No 16s, obviously. No 17S on obverse. No 17D on obverse. All right, well, no obverse there. No 1919, of course. Another tough date. Yeah, no 1919. So these are probably pulled out of pocket change and stuffed in the book. But we do have some older S mints. We have the 23S, the 27S, the 28S, the 29S, and the 33S, the 34S. That's the best of the earlies. Next book, you know, is not going to have the 38 Denver, but hopefully we're not missing too many outside of that. 38 Denver's not there. And the coins are starting to get slightly nicer, but nothing, again, too exciting. Nothing too exciting. And I know I'm rushing through these books, but really, uncommon stuff like this, unless we find varieties, there's really nothing to get excited about, or unless they're in great condition, and they really are not in great condition. September 1959, Mrs. Virginia Laney. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to, off camera, run through all these books, see if I see any varieties. This is going to take me some time. It'll be just a second for you guys. And if I happen to find something as I find it, I'll bring it back. Otherwise, I'll just bring you back with a recap of today's silver stuff. Well, I went through all the books and we have no varieties, which is typical. Don't expect to have a variety of one coin in one book for 1 year when there's very few of them out there. I cleaned out all the silver coins out of these books. Figured I'd go ahead and just roll it up. The Roosevelt dimes, I actually completed the 62 and 63 that it was missing, so I made a complete book there. The Buffalo nickels I left as is, and then the Lincoln cents, after checking for varieties, I just popped out the ones that have less than 12 million minted, but as you can see, they're in rough shape. They're in rough shape overall, but they're the best dates of the penny albums. I'll pull out the rest here in a moment, but for now, I just wanted to get the ending of this video done. So what are my thoughts? You know, we had some slightly better dates. The quarters did really well. The quarters did really well. The Mercury dimes were fun to search through, but the rest is just basically silver. And even though we got some better dates and a top 100 VAM in the dollar coins, really nothing of extreme value there other than what we paid for it. And then, of course, the half dollars were just good for the stack. So, you know, not as productive as last video, but still a lot of fun and still had some better coins overall, including I triple checked and double checked those Merc dimes. And we did have a 1930 San Francisco. We had a 31 Denver, and it was indeed a 1926S. So in the Merc dimes, we did have some slightly better dates as well. But overall, just kind of a fun hunt, fun going through collections like this. This is typically what I see in albums and such like that, because most of this stuff was pulled out of pocket change. Most people didn't go to coin shows and buy coins and fill up their books unless they were serious collectors. Good collection overall so far. And we still have all of the other goodies to go through. And this, I'll probably, like I said, just set up an overhead camera like this, and we'll just search it as I search it. So stay tuned for part 3, but hopefully part 2 was still fun for you guys. I know it's another long video, but you guys have been asking for longer videos, so I went ahead and did another one. If you did enjoy it, you know I certainly would appreciate that thumbs up. And as always, everyone, happy hunting and thanks for watching. Oh, you're still here? Well, I appreciate you watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, I decided to pick out a few more that I think you might enjoy, like that one right there or this one down here. Anyways, thanks for watching, happy hunting, and we'll see you in the next video.